Just 1 second. Wow, so many participants. Just a minute. Let's see. Okay, thank you for responses. Wonderful. All right, so I think we can start right now because everyone joined. So first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Yulia. Originally, I'm from Kharkiv, from Ukraine, and I'm a supervisor of the online course in Green Country ESL School Network in Ukraine. So Green Country, it's actually the chain of ESL schools. We work with kids from 6 to 16. We teach English as a second language. And also in Green Country, I work as a senior teacher. And as well, I'm an author of some books of 21 Easy Steps series made by GC Books. So today we're going to be talking about blended learning and flipped classroom. And also I will give you some idea on how we can do that in Ukraine in public schools, in public sector. So I think we can start with the beginning, with the very beginning of our training session about the blended learning. Actually, nowadays, blended learning is quite popular, and actually that's quite convenient for us to know what is that and how it works and how to use that, because of pandemic, we need to switch to online, and of course, blended learning, it's something that is absolutely about online and offline lessons. Let's move on here. What is blended learning? Actually, blended learning, it's the approach that mixes traditional teaching with technology and online resources. What I mean by that is that traditional teaching, it's usually a teacher, a classroom, a course book, a workbook, some maybe handouts, printouts, and this all mixes with online resources. For example, there can be pictures, videos, or some online websites, some online tasks, platforms, and so on. It can be even some YouTube videos, for instance. It's also like part of online learning. Also, if we talk about technology, it's all about the classroom and all about the technology at home. For example, in the classroom, that can be TV set or speakers or internet as well. Also, there can be some projectors. So everything that helps us to give some, feeling that we are digitalized, especially right now. If you talk about classroom from the students' perspective, then we can implement their smartphones. Right now, screen time is very high I think for every student. And it's not a good thing, of course, that parents are very concerned about that it's not good for students to use their phones at school. And some schools actually, they do not let students use them. But talking about blended learning, smartphones can be used in some percentage in the lesson, like maybe 20 or 10% during the lesson, in order to give them the feeling that still they are not restricted, they're not limited, and they can use their smartphone for learning. That is good, actually, not for games, but for learning. To sum up, blended learning is just the approach that let us mix traditional learning, traditional teaching, traditional lesson with online resources and different technology. Now let's see how we can organize it actually in the classroom. A bit of history. Talking about the history, we started implementing blended learning in 20th century. Of course, it was not like that, that we had in the internet, that we had computers, of course not. It's not like right now with smartphones and all these online platforms, but it was a very basic one. It was firstly used by Boeing. They started trainings for new joiners for their company. They used that for training sessions. They used usual CDs and DVDs for lectures and different demonstration on how to work with the things. It was like, of course, it depends on the profession, but talking about the Boeing, it was very convenient because they could show the aircraft parts, they could teach on how to operate it and so on. So firstly, it was used by Boeing, and then this approach was getting developed time by time. But of course, it was not very popular because companies could not afford computers. They could not afford internet very fast. Like it's only in 21st century, at the beginning of the 21st century, it was said that actually blended learning, it's a mix of traditional with online and technology. So there are three components that online learning and blended learning is based on. The first one is online learning. It can be actually not only websites, or it cannot be only online platform. It can also be some, for instance, application on the smartphone. For example, we have Duolingo. If you talk about learning languages and teaching languages, it can be Duolingo or any other app for learning words, grammar, vocabulary, listening, podcasts, and everything. It also can be some websites. For example, YouTube for watching videos in English. It can be Netflix, basically everything that is online. Classroom learning, it's basically the lesson in the classroom with the teacher. For example, we have a traditional lesson with the teacher and with the course book, and for extra tasks, for extra work, the teacher can add something online. It can be an online game. For example, Kahoot is one of the most famous ones. I think everyone heard of Kahoot somehow. And the last one is internet and technology. Talking about internet, of course, it's required not only at home, but also in the lesson. It should be there as well. And technology, such as TV, computer, laptop, speakers, projector, for example, as well. So if your classroom is equipped with all that, you can implement blended learning really easily. But even if you don't have TV set, if you don't have speakers, if you don't have internet, it's not the problem. You can use your own laptop or your own tablet, computer, whatever, in your classroom. And you can share, for example, you can share the data on your laptop and work this way as well. So everything is manageable actually. But of course, if we talk about the schools in the villages or in some cities where we don't have equipped classrooms, that can be done just manually. Like the teacher can use it with his or her own devices. But of course, it's kind of complicated, but still possible. Even if it's not possible for you to use your own device in your school, in your lesson, you can implement blended learning at home. You can give your students some extra task online at home. But first, you will need to give the instructions on how to do that, where to find it, what to use, which websites to use, and so on. So let's go back here and talk about advantages of blended learning. Of course, there are a lot of advantages of this approach because it's very contemporary, it's very famous for now because of the smartphone era and the fact that students use their smartphones and devices like tablet or laptop a lot. Currently, we have a lot of advantages for this approach. The first one is independence. What I mean by independence is that a lot of students, they like to do the things on their own, without the help of the teacher, without the help of the partners, of the group mates, and so on. So it gives us an opportunity to give them this time for themselves. For example, in traditional lesson, we have the homework. The homework can be done in the workbook, usually if you talk about the set, student's book and workbook or grammar book. And usually it's done by checking with the teacher in the next lesson. For example, today we have lesson number 1. I give the homework for tomorrow. And tomorrow I need to check. As a teacher, I need to give my students some key, right, to check it. But if you talk about blended learning, now you have a chance to give them an opportunity to check themselves with the online task. For example, if you talk about some platform, if you have some platform of your school, for example, like in Green Country, we have our own platform, 24 Easy Steps, and the students can check their tasks themselves without the teacher. Like they're doing the task, then they press the button check, and they can see all the correct answers or what was wrong, what was not correct, and so on. So this is all about independence. They know that they can do that themselves. Even if you have some grammar topics that you need to present, usually in traditional lesson, we would do that on the board, right? We would stand in front of the classroom, we would use the board, we would explain the rules, we would write the form, we would work on pronunciation all together. So you as a teacher would be a source of this knowledge. But if you talk about blended learning, you can put it on your students. So you can give them the grammar video of the same that you would explain on the board. You would give the grammar video for the homework. They would watch this video and would do some tasks, or they would complete some grammar chart, for example, after watching this video. So you can give them the chance to learn by themselves, to study by themselves without your help. That makes it much, much better for their future learning, for example. The next one, motivation. If you talk about motivation, here it's all about the chance of using smartphones, the chance of using different devices like laptop, tablet, smartphone, computer, watching, for example, YouTube, and so on in the lesson, because all that can be done for learning aims, not just for entertainment. So when we use online games, when we use smartphones, it's something that our students really enjoy. Then their motivation really increases very much. So what I mean by that we have two types of motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic. So this intrinsic motivation, it's something that comes from inside. For example, I want to learn English, not because I need it for my exam, not because I need it for communication, not because I need it for, I don't know, something else, for traveling or watching series in English. I learn English because I love it. I love the process of learning. I love the language itself. So I enjoy it very much and I like the lessons. So that's why I do that. And I do all the homework. I work in the lesson just because I enjoy, not because I need it for something, but just because I enjoy it from inside. This is intrinsic motivation that makes students do their tasks, that makes students work in your lessons productively, not because you ask them to do the task, you know, like they're not feeling, they don't feel that it's necessary because you are saying that. They feel that it's necessary only when they really enjoy it. So that's why when we add some online resources, online games, when we add some work with their smartphone, when we add some, for example, work with online resources, websites, some researches online, it gives them a lot of pleasure. So they enjoy it. That is why their motivation, it increases. So that is why it's one of the main advantages of this approach, because we can implement the things they really love and they really enjoy. The next one is ability to teach more students. It's not only about the homework as well, because in the lesson, of course, in the lesson, we cannot give the full information for everyone. For example, some students need 10 minutes to understand some grammar topics that you are teaching today, for instance. And some of the students need 25 minutes to understand this topic, because maybe they don't have any basic knowledge about that, or they don't have anything that they learned before about that. So every student has its own speed of learning, and they need some different time of understanding things, of practicing things. That's why if you give some task online for homework, but not in the classroom, they would spend as much time as they need for that. So you can give the task for more students. You don't need to waste time in the lesson, but you can give these more tasks for homework, because some of them would do that in 10 minutes, as I said before, and some of them can do that in 1 hour. So you never know. And this way you will not waste time in the lesson, repeating the same piece of information every time. It's like that. And the next one is engaging for the students. It means that your students will be completely involved in your lesson. They will be interested and engaged because of using the smartphones, using online resources, and being more independent. Because when they feel that they are more independent, it becomes much easier for them to learn. It becomes much easier for them to be motivated to do what you expect them to do. And overall, the process of learning becomes more interactive and interesting, because it's all about them. You're not in the center and the teacher. Students are in the center as for all the process. Talking about disadvantages, of course, each approach has something that is positive and something that is negative. Let's talk about negative ones. Lack of IT awareness. Of course, some of the students do not know on how to use some resources, online platforms, websites, and so on. And some of the teachers as well. That is why before implementing blended learning, you need to make sure that you know on how to use that in your learning environment, in your school, or with some particular group, for example. So to solve this issue, it's actually not even an issue, it just lack of experience probably. So to solve it, you can just research more before implementing that. So your first aim will be to make sure that you know on how to work with that, and that you know that in your lesson, at your school, in your classroom, it will work. For example, you will have the internet connected, you will have speakers connected, everything will work fine. All the website pages will be opened before your lesson. So before doing something, always make sure that you know how it works, the way it works. Next one, dependence on the internet. I know that during pandemic, almost everyone switched to Zoom lessons. And of course, it was not very comfortable and convenient, because internet was just the problem for a lot of people, because some people don't have Wi-Fi or just internet connection at home, and they use their data, which is not the best idea, because it usually breaks. You know, you don't have any opportunity to give a good lesson because of internet, because it lags and so on. But again, before implementing something like that, like blended learning or some online resources in your lesson, make sure that you have the second option. Like, for example, if you're not sure about Wi-Fi at your school, always have your data mobile hotspot connected. Like, in case if it breaks, you always have the second option, and you don't need to be stressed about that, because internet, it's something that we can never know, we can never predict that. And of course, it's better to have some second option for that. But again, it's of course a disadvantages. It's a disadvantage, but it's something that you can really solve by preparing something extra. Talking about classroom, the second, classroom must be equipped, because for blended learning, the best idea is when we have the fully equipped classroom. I mean, we have a TV set, we have internet connection, we have maybe some interactive whiteboards and so on. It would be perfect if you have it, but if you don't, just try to maybe implement step by step. Like, first, you can implement some online games for your students, like Kahoot or Quizlet. You can do that gradually. Like, first week you can implement online games. Second week you can bring your laptop and you can work with the video content and so on. Like, do that not everything at once, of course, but just gradually. And if your classroom, if your school is not equipped, you can just think about doing something by yourself. Maybe it will be only about online games that you can add, because I think all the students, they have their smartphones, even the basic ones. It's always possible to implement some game, for example. It would be a great idea for them to have some variety in the lesson, not only the tasks in the course books and the workbooks, because they will be waiting for online game, for example, because now in Green Country, we have a lot of games in the lessons, and our students always ask us, for example, I mean, the teachers, when we will have Kahoot, when will we have Quizlet or any online game they really enjoy. All right, and let's talk on how to and what to start with if you talk about blended learning and on how to implement that. The first step that you will take is creating a syllabus for online learning and offline classes. What I mean, usually before the start of the semester, we have some schedule, we have some syllabus. So we know that in the lesson number 1, we are going to be covering present simple. In the lesson number 2, we're going to be covering some vocabulary. Lesson number 3, some specific functional language, and so on. Obviously, it can be done by you as a teacher, or it can be provided by your school administration. It's fine. But you always need to have 2 separate syllabus, because you will need to match them. Like, for instance, if you talk about online learning, the first lesson will be about present simple. That means before your lesson, they will know some piece of present simple grammar, right? But in offline lesson, you will be practicing present simple. So it can be adjusted, but you always need to have some plan, because in order to achieve any aim in the end of the semester, you want to, for example, you want your students to know what present simple is, how to order some snacks in the restaurant, some functional language for ordering food or drinks in the restaurant, in the cafe, whatever. And in order to achieve this aim in the end of the semester, you need to have a strict plan on how to do that. Which lesson will cover what. So create it for online, what you will give them online, and create for offline, what will be covered offline. Step number 2, you need to choose some online resources that you're going to be using in your semester. These can be interactive boards if you talk about online classes. If you talk about offline classes, that will be online games or some maybe extra video materials. For example, that can be even materials on YouTube or Netflix instead of the audio from the course book. I will give you the example. For instance, in the course book, we have the listening task with some true or false questions, for example. You know that, of course, your students will do that because you will give them this as a task. They will not have any issue with that. But it's much more interesting for them to do something that they already know. For instance, you know that your students like watching the cartoon, The Secret Life of Pets. For example, let's take it as an option. You know that they're discussing that a lot in their break or lunch break, and you heard from some students that they were watching that they enjoyed some main characters and so on. So why don't you substitute those audio tasks from the course book at least once a month, for example, or once in 2 weeks with some funny video from YouTube or Netflix, for example, something that they really watch. You can take some short part of the cartoon, The Secret Life of Pets, for example, and design the task about that part of the cartoon. It can be found online even, because there are a lot of tasks for listening comprehension online already created for you, like ready-made. So you can just Google them or create your own if you're not sure about them and you're not sure about the quality. So you can work on some targeted vocabularies that is aimed in your lessons. You can work on some targeted grammar. You can work even on speaking skills, for example. if you talk about the same cartoon, you can ask them to describe the personality of each character, of each pet in that cartoon, like whether who is nice, who is angry, who is greedy, who is generous, who is funny, and so on. So it can be managed in different ways. So sometimes you need to really listen to what your students are discussing during the breaks in order to be involved in what they enjoy and what they like, in order to provide them the material that they would enjoy a lot in your lesson. For example, it would be much more interactive and interesting for them to hear that today we're going to be watching cartoon that they really like and enjoy and love watching, instead of listening to some audio from the course book that they have no idea about. Of course, the audio is not bad. I'm not saying that, but the cartoon is always better and it's always more interesting for them, just something that will increase their motivation as well. So you can consider it as an option. Number 3, you always need to give some clear instructions for students on how to work online. What I mean by that is that if you give them some task online, for example, for homework, they need to watch the video and do the tasks in Google Docs, for example. You need to show that in offline lesson, like, guys, you need to open the link, you need to watch the video first, once, then you do task number 1, you need to type the answer, then you need to go back to YouTube video and watch it for the second time, go back to Google Docs and do the task, for example, to tick the box with the correct answer, or to type some answer, or to choose the correct answer, to circle it, to mark it somehow. So give them clear instructions. If you use some online classrooms like Google Classroom, for example, then you can always give them a very detailed instruction on how to do that. Like step number 1, open the link and watch the video once. Step number 2, open the Google Doc and do task number 1, type your answer. Step number 3, go back to the video and watch it again. Number 4, do task number 2. Put the tick next to the correct answer, true or false. Task number 5, complete the task and send it to me, or submit it to me, and show them how to submit the tasks, how to send it to you. If you want to get it on your email ID, provide them with email ID, show how to do that, how to send it, and so on. So it also it's very important, because if your students don't know how to do that, if they don't know how to use, for example, how to attach a picture on Telegram chat or in Viber chat, or how to attach or send a message on Gmail, for example, that happens a lot actually now, because of course students, they do not use Gmail. So you will need to give them instructions on how to use these platforms, or if you use some specific platforms. And number 4, digitalize learning materials such as tests, homework, course book, and so on. I'm sure that all of you have some tests in printed version, or something created by you even. You have some homework tasks, also printed ones, or maybe workbook tasks, course books, and so on. You always can digitalize that. How? For example, if you talk about tests, you can just put this tests printed version, you can put it into Word. You can put it into Word and upload on Google Classroom and ask your students to complete it online and send it to you. It can be checked by you and given the feedback to them also online by email or on Google Classroom. It depends on what you use. If we talk about course books, also they can be digitalized the same way. You can just put the tasks into Word and again upload them onto Google Drive or OneDrive, any drive you use actually, and then it can be sent to the students and then given feedback for them and checked by you, for example. So everything that you already have in printed version, you can put it online. It's always possible. Of course, it takes time, but you will be able to use it a lot of times in your next teaching classes, for example, next year, and so on with other groups. So let's move on to the next part. It's a flipped class. Actually, flipped class, it's not another division of flipped classroom, blended learning, sorry, it's actually an approach, one of the approaches of blended learning, because blended learning has a lot of different approaches. Flipped classroom, it's one of them. So in flipped classroom, the main idea is that the teacher is not a source of the knowledge anymore. It's a mentor and controller, the one who helps, the one who guides students, the one who can give some support, but never gives the information. We will talk about that a bit more now. But before we start talking about flipped classroom, I would like you to scan the QR code with some poll. I would like you to answer the question on how you start and finish your lessons. I mean, traditional lessons. For example, you can start lessons with some warm-up, or you can start your lessons with some revision task or homework check and so on. I will show you on how to join the website. Let me do that, activate. Yeah, so you need to scan the QR code first, or administrator Tatiana will assist you and she will send the link to the chat. And then you need to insert this PIN code. Yeah, I see some responses already. That's wonderful. All right. Great. You can see a lot of responses. Feedback, warming, greeting, warm up, game. Okay. Lesson, quotes, activities, summarizing. Wonderful. Yeah, great. Brainstorming, songs, reflection, video. Okay, great. That's wonderful. Questions, wonderful. Okay, thank you so much for your responses. Actually, they are really interesting, to be honest. So yeah, mostly I see that a lot of you use warming up at the beginning of the lesson. That is very logical and right. Greetings, of course. And talking about finishing, I think it's maybe about songs, like you can use a song at the end of the lesson. And some feedback, of course. Feedback, it's very important. It's a crucial part of the learning. I think every task without feedback cannot be complete. So we have the task, and all the time we need some feedback on content or feedback on accuracy of our students. Okay, thank you so much for the responses. By the way, this is the resource you can use for your students. Its name is Poll Everywhere. You can Google on how to use it and how to start the poll. It can be good for leading or for warming up or for greetings as well. Like you can just ask some questions like, how are you? What's new? And your students will give you responses in this word cloud. It will be, I think, a good idea for online classes. Great. Thank you so much for your responses. So as I see, usually you start your lessons with some warming up and you finish your lessons with some summarizing. Okay, let's have a look at our idea. Talking about traditional lesson, of course, we started with warm up, with greetings, and then we move on to presentation. We present some new topics like grammar topics or vocabulary topics or functional language topics. Usually we would do that on the board, or if you talk about traditional lesson as well, we would do that with the pictures, probably with some posters or some visuals. Then practice. We have actually different types of practice. There are two. We have controlled practice and we have less controlled practice. Talking about practice, it's more about some tasks like fill in the gaps or choose the correct answer or correct the mistake and so on. So it will be our second step in traditional lesson. And step number 3, it's production. It's something that our students produce by themselves based on what they know already. So based on what they learned before, in the presentation stage, not at home, but in the presentation stage. So usually it takes too much time for us to give them some good and proper presentation. Like if you talk about the lesson of 45 minutes, we would spend, I think, around 10-15 minutes explaining a new topic. And this is not the best idea for such short lessons. What we can do about that, we can use flipped lesson technique. So step number 1 would be self-study. What is self-study? Actually, this is the homework that is presented not after the lesson as in traditional approach, but before the lesson. What does it look like? So self-study, it's usually presentation. For example, if it's grammar, then we would present it with some grammar video. Then we would have the grammar chart after that and some set of grammar tasks from the easiest to the most difficult one, but only restricted practice, like choose the correct answer, complete the grammar chart, correct the mistakes, fill in the gaps, open the brackets, and so on. So it would be our self-study. It means that our students come to the lesson already prepared. They know the topic, they know what it is. We don't need to explain, for example, present simple from the very scratch, because they already know it from home. So your students come to the lesson already fully prepared. They know the topic from the very beginning. It means that you can skip the presentation stage in your lesson and start with the practice like from the very beginning. Step number 2 will be the beginning of your lesson. It will be the lesson itself. It will be checking, understanding, and awareness of the topic. Again, it will be some task regarding the topic of self-study. If you talk about present simple and grammar, we would take some probably sentences with mistakes. We would put that in the lesson, for example, on the walls in your classroom, and we would ask your students to correct the mistakes in pairs. And then the teacher would be able to understand whether the students did their self-study, whether they watched that grammar video, whether they completed it and studied the grammar chart or not. So that would be a very easy way to get that idea, whether your students are prepared or not. Because if they're not prepared, then in that case, you will need to give them a short presentation. If they are prepared, that's great. You can go on, you can go ahead with practice tasks. Step number 3, practice itself. We would give some controlled practice. As I mentioned, it's choose the correct option. It's also fill in the gaps and so on, and less controlled practice. Less controlled practice, it's correct the mistakes, unscramble the sentence, rewrite the sentence, make questions from positive sentences, and so on. So it's something that is a bit more difficult than controlled practice. And step number 4, it's the most important and the most precious, I would say, part of the lesson. It's production. That must be the biggest part of your lesson. As you see, I demonstrated that like in percentage. Like step number 2, it's a small round. Step number 3, the square is a little bigger. Step number 4, it's the biggest square here on in my presentation. That means that production should take around 65-70% of your lesson. What is production? It's some task that your students produce based on their knowledge without your help, without any example. For instance, if you talk about present simple, let's take like the same topic for me to explain to you and make it clear. It means that you will give them, for example, the pictures, and they will need to produce the dialogue in present simple using the structure they already know and words they already know. Or you can give them the picture of professions, and they will need to ask or explain the profession, like what they do. The student should ask the question, what does he do, without the example, without any help, without everything. So those will be questions only from their mind, only based on what they already know from self-study and from the lesson. So it's something that doesn't have any examples. It's the most difficult and the most important part of the lesson. It can be a speaking activity or it can be writing activity. So it depends on what type of the lesson you have. But of course, to talk about English, it's more important to speak and to listen. I mean, in real life, because we need to teach our students speak English fluently and understand what others are speaking about, right? So production will be focused mostly on speaking. Sometimes we will have writing lessons. It will be not very often as speaking ones, but talking about production, it's always about speaking. Like they will need to use present simple in a real life situation, like creating a dialogue, or role-playing some situations, role-playing some cards with pictures, whatever you can give them as production. But if it's production, it never has example. It never has words they need to use. It never has structure they need to use. They need to take everything from their mind, from something that they already know. So this was a flipped lesson. Next one. I would like to talk about Bloom's taxonomy. It's something that will show you why flipped lesson is a really convenient approach for learning English. So in actually in any learning, in learning of the language or some other subject, we have different thinking skills. We have lower order, they are right here, and we have higher order, they are right here. So in lower order, we have remembering, understanding, and applying, and a higher one, we have analyzing, evaluating, and creating. I want to just warn you that I don't mean that one of these criterion it's less important than the other one. For example, remembering is not less important than creating, or evaluating is not more important than understanding. All of them are equal, like all of them should take place in the learning. For instance, let's take the vocabulary food, right? You have the topic vocabulary. First, they need to remember the meaning of the word, right? So this is remembering stage. Next, they need to understand how to say it, on how to use it in different situations. It's understanding stage. Next stage is applying. They can apply it in some text or situation or in a sentence. They can complete the sentence with this word. They already apply this word. The next one, analyzing. They can analyze whether they can use this word in plural form, how they can use this word in plural form, where they can use this word, with which word they can use this, and so on. So it's analyzing of the sentence, analyzing of the word order, for instance. Next, evaluating. They can, for example, use this word in different context, because some words have the same form, but they have the different meanings. You know it yourself. So this is evaluating stage. And the last one, the most important and the most, I would say, difficult one, it's creating. So they will be able to say this word, to use this word, to write this word without examples, from their own mind, in the correct context, in the correct situation. So that will be the last stage of getting the knowledge. So when we say that I know how to use that, it means we covered all these stages. So what about flipped classroom? How does it work with that? And remembering, understanding, and applying comes into self-study part. And analyzing, evaluating, and creating comes to offline classroom part. So remembering, understanding, and applying can be done at home without the teacher and without the group mates. They can, for example, see the pictures, they can learn the words by themselves. They don't need the teacher for that, right? They don't need the partner for that, right? So, but in the class, in offline lesson, they need a teacher for analyzing, for evaluating, and for creating, because they need someone to listen to them. They need someone to support them in production, in speaking, or in writing, in whatever they have to do. So whenever we need a support, some support, we need teacher, it will be about three last stages. It will be about analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So three first will come to self-study, and three last will will come to the lesson. The next one. Let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of flipped classroom and a flipped lesson. The first one, talking about the benefits, that the teacher gets time for individual work with every student. What I mean by that in traditional lesson, we don't have any time to explain individually to the student, for example, the grammar topic or the vocabulary topic and so on. So in this case, in flipped lesson, we have a lot of work online and at home. I gave you the example with present simple for some self-study, for grammar video, grammar chart, and set of tasks. So it will be done individually by the student without teachers' support, help, or anything. So that means that if some student is struggling, you can have some online lesson or online meeting or offline meeting, for example, individually with the student. You will not have to explain it to everyone because for example, 80% of students, they will get the topic, but only 10% of students then will not. So that means that in the lesson, you will be able to divide the roles. The ones who got the topic will be practicing that more. The ones who didn't get, they will be getting your support and they will be practicing that afterwards. So it can be managed like that because some strong students, they don't like listening to presentation stage from the teacher because they already know that or they already understand this really fast and so on. So in order to avoid misunderstandings, in order to avoid time consuming and so on, it's better to give it to homework and then to practice it in the lesson. The advantage number 2 is that student can work with the material in a proper way and take as much time as needed. As I mentioned this before, every student has its own speed of learning. For example, some of them can get the information in 10 minutes, and some of them, they cannot get it even in an hour. So for example, if we talk about grammar videos, they can be watched once or twice or 3 times or 4 times and so on, or they can be stopped in some particular moment to revise, to listen that to one more time and so on. So it's very individual, and it's never possible in the lesson, in offline lesson during the presentation stage, give the full presentation 2 times or 3 times or 4 times. Like you cannot explain the same things several times because you will not have any time for that. So it's better to give that as a homework online, for example, and then in the next lesson to focus only on the most difficult parts of the topic or of the presentation. Number 3, videos are available for all the students because you just give the link and they do that at home for those who were present in the lesson and for those who were absent. Even if your students, if some students are absent in today's lesson, that means that they will not skip the explanation, they will not skip the topic. Still, they are able to watch the video at home and do the tasks at home and get the topic at home by themselves. They don't have any chance to come to you to the next lesson and say, I didn't understand the topic because I was absent, or I just didn't get the time to do that because I was absent and you didn't explain it to me because I was absent, right? So now you will be sure that even if your students cannot come to the lesson physically, they always have some time and opportunity to do that online at home. Even not at home, even if they're out of the city or of the country, they always can watch the video from their device anytime or take access to the platform anytime. Talking about disadvantages of flipped classroom, there are some of them. Students cannot ask the question at the moment when it appears. And of course, they have to wait to the beginning of the lesson, like for tomorrow or in 2 days and so on. In the lesson, when they don't understand something, they can always raise their hand and ask the question, right? Then the teacher can answer right away. But if we talk about flipped lesson and self-study at home, we can never guarantee that they will not remember that they will not forget their question, they will not be puzzled and they just ignore all that. So this is something that you will need to adjust for your students and explain. Like if you don't understand something still after grammar videos or vocabulary videos or some texts or grammar charts, you can always mark this moment. You can always mark the moment that you didn't understand. Come to me to the lesson or raise your hand in the lesson while we are checking something, and we can discuss it. We can easily like correct your mistake, or I can easily explain it to you what was not clear. The second disadvantage of that is that some students might ignore self-study and won't be able to work productively in the lesson because just simply they didn't do self-studies, they didn't get the topics, they didn't like get any information about the topic you're going to be working with in the lesson. So this problem actually is something that appears, sometimes it appears in our classes as well, because Green Country works with a blended learning and flipped classroom approach. So sometimes we get the students who come to the lesson unprepared. So that means we don't have any presentation, and we have some students who don't know anything. We can actually manage the situation by creating some short presentations on the spot. Or if you're not sure that you can create it on the spot, because again, it comes with experience. We can never expect junior teachers or the teachers who just started teaching like 1 year ago to prepare a good, clear, short presentation that would be relevant for the students in the lesson, like on the spot. You can create two options of your lesson plan. What I mean, for example, if you're sure that your students will come prepared, you will have checking grammar or vocabulary on functional language understanding. It will be some short task to understand whether they did self-study or not. If you understand that they did self-study, then you go on with some practice, and then you go on to production. It means that production will take the most part of your lesson. And the second option of your lesson plan will be checking grammar, vocabulary, functional language understanding. Then it will be a very short presentation, but don't get me wrong, it will not be the presentation on the board, like I'm a teacher, I'm studying and I'm writing on the board whatever I need to give you. So it will be eliciting. I will ask you, for example, if you talk about present simple, I will write 3 sentences. The first one will be positive one, the second will be negative, and the third one will be the question. And I will ask, what can you see on the board? Are these questions, are all of them positive sentences, or are all of them negative sentences? Where is the auxiliary verb? Which auxiliary verb am I using here? Why is it here? Why it's not to be? Why it's not to do? You know, so you will be able to elicit, to ask them, to make them think. Because when we explain something, our students, they're not paying attention. Like their attention span is very short, like around 5 or 7 minutes, even shorter if you talk about different ages. So it would be from 5 to 7 minutes. But if you talk about young learners, it would be like 3 minutes or 2 minutes, and that's done. They will not listen to you at all. So it's always better to ask them, provide examples, elicit the information, and then elicit the form of present simple, elicit some more examples, elicit the meaning of present simple. Like, do we use present simple for everyday routines or for something that we do now at this exact moment? So you give them choice. Do we use it for this or for that? And they need to analyze and think, okay, present simple must be used for example, everyday routines. So always ask questions, but never give the ready-made information, because it never makes them challenged. It never makes them think on the topic, like about the targeted grammar or targeted vocabulary. So it will be your short presentation. Actually, the presentation also can be done in flipped lesson, but it has different types. So you can provide guided discovery type of presentation. It can be test, teach, test. It can be also different techniques that will make your student challenged. For example, if you're sure that your students didn't do self-study, you can provide them with the pictures of present continuous topic, for example, and you can ask them, can you describe what's going on in the picture? They will start using present simple, which is not correct when we describe the pictures, like when we see something right now that is going on. So that will make them understand that they cannot use present simple for this situation, because simple is used for everyday routines and so on, for timetables, schedules, whatever, and something that is going right now must be used with some other tense. So you can also ask, you can also start your presentation this way by challenging them. And the third, Okay, and the next one is how to prepare your students for your flipped approach and how to anticipate the problems in your flipped lesson. Of course, when we start something new, when we start some new approach, we always have challenges. We always have problems that might appear. For example, the easiest one, when we all switched to Zoom lessons, we expected to have some internet issues, but we have never thought like what we can do about that. So now when I have some Zoom lesson, I always have my mobile phone, my smartphone nearby me with mobile hotspot on, because I never know when my internet will be off, right? So this is something that we can anticipate. We can predict that it might happen, and I have a solution for that. The first one, you need to indicate what your students are supposed to learn, read, watch, listen in advance. For example, you need to say that, guys, we are going to be working with our course book. It will be offline only, but I will add some articles from online magazines, newspapers, so that they know what to expect, you know, because sometimes when we send something new, they're not even like they have no idea on how to do that. So tell your students in advance that, guys, in our course, we will have some videos, we will have cartoons, we will have online games, we will have online platform for our self-study. Just tell them in advance what they're going to be facing. The next one, you need to adjust all the information for the students. You don't need to create something new. You don't need to create everything from the scratch, because I'm sure you have some materials already made, prepared for your students. For example, the tasks from your course books or from the workbook, you can transfer it into the Google Doc. For example, you have the task, complete the gaps with some verbs or the words or the adjectives. It can be anything. And you can just type the tasks from the course book or from the workbook into Google Doc, send it to your students and let them do that online, and let them send it to you online on the Google Classroom, for example, or any other messenger or whatever you use for interaction or communication with your students. Next, for example, if you talk about videos, you also can create your own worksheets, handouts for the videos, and send it to them. So everything that you have printed, as I said before, you can always digitalize. Just think on how to do that, and think on how to make your life easier. Because, for example, if you have it on PDF version, in PDF format, you cannot edit it. Like, not all the students can edit it. Of course, some of the Adobe readers have this feature on editing, but not everyone has it, right? So it's better to use some online resources that like transfers PDF into doc version, because you don't need to retype everything. Of course, you can just use online resource, just you need to explore it beforehand. Next, it's very crucial and important to control your students all the time. You need to make sure that your students know on how to work with online materials, and that they know that doing self-study, it's important for their own result. Because if they don't do that, they will not be able to get the topic in the lesson. They will not be able to get the result you expect them to get in the end of the semester, like what they need to achieve. So always control them. Never let them go with, with self-studies that is not done. Never let it free, never forget it, never ignore it. So always say, like, if you are not doing self-study for today, then you are doing 2 self-studies for tomorrow or for the next week when you have the next lesson. So always control that. You can also create some Excel sheet with their names, and you can put ticks on self-studies they have done and self-studies they have not done. So that in the end of the week, you can provide them with this information and tell them, guys, you need to, some of you need to like redone or redo their self-studies or do something extra. So you can also find them. If they don't do their self-study, you give them 2 extra tasks. If you have some marks at school, you can influence them with marks as well. So it also gives them some motivation to do that on time in order not to get some extra work to do. The next one, if you use videos, if you talk about flipped classroom, flipped lesson, videos will be used anyway, like it will be for sure. In our platform 24 Easy Steps, we have a lot of videos that are provided for explanation of the grammar, of vocabulary and functional language. So never use the videos longer than 5 or 6, 7 minutes, because if it's longer, your students will not be able to focus on something that is important in the video. They will watch it, but not up to the end, because they will lose interest and so on. So it's important not to choose very long videos. Always remember about that. Prefer short videos with a clear idea. For example, if your video is about recycling, give only one idea or 2 or 3 ideas of recycling. Don't give the definition of recycling in the video. Don't give the general information about recycling in the video. Give some specific thing that they need to focus on. It will be much easier for them to comprehend the speaking, to comprehend what they need to get from the video. And of course, it's important that you choose the videos that are according to the level of your students. If your students are beginners, you cannot choose this video with the level B1, with the words of the level B1. If your students are B2, upper intermediate, there is no use to choose something that is easy for them. So you can even challenge them with something that is more difficult. So now I would like to focus on some resources that will help you to make your lesson more interactive, more interesting, more productive in a way. So the first resource that I would like to focus on is Google Classroom. I will be demonstrating the screen for you, and just 1 second, it's here. So what Google Classroom is, I think most of you already used that before. And I know that a lot of teachers who transferred into Zoom and who transferred to online lessons only use it. Is a very good tool for classroom management and so on. I would like to show you on how to use that for reading assignments, for some tasks, for speaking, for tests as well, and for communication, because some of the students and some of the parents, they're not happy on communication of the student and the teacher in the messenger, because it's not quite professional. And if you talk about messengers, it's not always possible to post some messages or to attach some audios or videos. It's not always comfortable. For example, the best messenger for communication between the teacher and the student, I think it's Telegram, because it gives us an opportunity not to create the group, but to create a channel where only one person, the creator, can post some content. So it's actually much better than sending writing tasks in Viber. That is not very popular and famous anymore, and actually convenient or relevant. So yeah, Google Classroom, it's a very good tool if you have online class or mixed, like you have offline classes plus online classes. So there is an example of my real class in Google Classroom. It was my Zeno group. So here I posted homework, as you can see. I posted the pages they need to do, which self-studies they need to do, maybe some extra materials, PDF materials, folders, tests, audios, videos. So everything is like that. It's here. If you go to classwork, you can see different assignments. I gave them some tasks on to complete some assignments for the test, before the test, on how to prepare for the test, and so on. And also I checked everything here online, and I sent them this online because I had only online course with them. So you can see the information here, how many people gave you the task, actually submitted the task, and how many people didn't do that. So let's have a look. View assignment. I can see assignment from here. I can put the mark even, like out of 20, out of 14, 10, it's up to you. This is the essay of my student. And also here you can put like 10 or 15 or 14, and you can return it. So Google Classroom has a lot of features actually for the teachers, so you can just explore it more. And it's very good for using for tests, by the way. You can also organize tests in Google Classroom, because you will be able to check and give feedback, in the comments, like this is correct because, or this is not correct because, and so on. The next is Class Dojo. I would really like to focus on this one because it's an amazing resource for the teachers of primary school, of secondary school, but not always for the high school. So this is the resource that helps us to regroup the students, that helps us to increase the motivation and control the motivation of the students. Well, how it works. So there is a group of 4 students. I just created it like as a sample to show you. We have 4 students, and they assign different funny monsters for the students. If you press on the student here, you can see different criteria like helping others, task, participating, persistence, teamwork, working hard, and so on. If the student works hard, you can give 1 extra point. Like that. You can even project it, demonstrate it on the screen. You can edit the skills. You can add some skill, for example, let's say speaking English in the lesson. And the lesson. You can put like 3 points for that, save it, and you can always use it like an extra here. Let's try. Speaking English in the lesson, +3. Also, besides, you can use toolkit, it's here, but before using, you can even mark attendance of your students. If you press to attendance, we can see we have 4 students present here in the lesson. But if we have 1 that is absent, for example, Lisa, I will put her as a red one. She's not in the lesson. Then I need to save attendance. I'm going to toolkit, and I can either put a timer for the task, like 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Let's try it like that. And they have the timer going on the screen. The second feature in the toolkit, it's random. It's just random person that is chosen by the system. For example, you can use it when you ask someone to answer, but you don't want to be biased. You don't want to choose one specific person, but you just want to make it random, like not 1 by 1, but randomly. You can also use this resource, this feature. The third one is a really good one, is a group maker. So for group maker, you need to mark attendance beforehand. We did it with you just now. You press group maker, and then you choose how many people will be in a group. Like 2, it means a pair, or 3, it means a group, 4, a group, and so on and so forth. Here we have also noise meter. It's for primary school, it's very good because if you don't want your class to be messy and noisy, you can put it. You can see if I'm silent, it goes down. If I'm speaking, it goes up. It's very good to, to visualize it and to show it and demonstrate that on the screen for them to have fun as well. The other ones can be used as well, but I think the music can be used for some maybe project tasks or some creative tasks and so on. So you can try Class Dojo out because it's a very good resource for the teachers, actually, for any school, for any type of the learners. Then we have Quizlet. I think Quizlet is quite popular and you already know what's that and on how to play it. It can be played in a group, in offline lesson, like you can have only a minimum, you should have minimum 4 students who are playing and they're playing together. It should be 4 and more, just keep in mind. Also, they can learn these words with flashcards individually at home. It can be as a part of the homework. So we can see the word and we can see the meaning.
Outgoing.
And we can even listen to that. So nervous and uncomfortable with other people. I need to remember the word, flip the card, it's shy. Then I can listen to the word and so on. You can create all these cards by yourself and create the account on Quizlet too. Then we can use Learn like this. friendly and social, I need to choose the correct option. So it's kind of online platform for learning as well, but it's just the resource, like extra resource for your classes. Then they can write the times the word of, they can have the description, the definition, and they need to type the word that is correct. Spell it, to listen, test, just usual test about all these words, matching and gravity. Gravity, it's actually a game that can be played individually at home too. And they need just to write the correct definition for the words, like fair. Then we will have the next planet with the word, and I will need to type what it means. Or on the contrary, we have the definition and we need to type the word there. So it's quite fun for them. The next one, it's Kahoot. I think there is no use to show you because everyone knows Kahoot. Quizzes, it's kind of Kahoot. I will show you this one. So this is quizzes. It's very similar to Kahoot actually, but it has much more flexible types of the tasks, because in Kahoot we need to pay extra for membership to choose different types of the tasks. But in quizzes, everything, almost everything is free. You can just explore, and we have different types of the tasks. Let's see if we create a new one. Let's make just any random name, and you can see the tasks. It's translated not correctly, but here it's like multiple choice, tick the answer, fill in the gap, some poll for discussion, for example, complete the sentence, and so on. So it's much more flexible if we talk about types of the task. You can try it out as well. The next one, it's Bamboozle. Bamboozle is a great resource for kind of Jeopardy games. I'll show you what it works, how it works. Let's choose quiz. So as you can see, we have two teams, team 1 and team number 2. Then I choose any number and I have the task. Something basketball, check in, play basketball. So you can divide your students into 2 groups and play online if you have online lessons or offline. Also, this website is quite flexible and it's free. You don't need to pay for membership to use it. The next one, Ian Podcast. This is the resource that was created by Green Forest. So here we have digital different podcasts that can be used not only for adults, but also for high and secondary school students. But just before you choose, you need to be very attentive. So there are a lot of podcasts. For example, let's open this one. We have the audio. It's here.
Divided September 1st.
And we have audio script. You can read it as well. You can create some tasks based on this podcast. And there are a lot of podcasts that you can search by topics, by levels, and by authors. So that is quite comfortable and convenient if you want to practice some speaking skills, listening skills of your students. YouTube and Netflix, I think it's obvious. On YouTube, we can choose different grammar videos. There are plenty of grammar videos on YouTube, very good ones. By the way, from Green Country and Green Forest, there are some videos on YouTube as well. You can Google them. For Netflix also, if you have membership, you can choose some cartoons that your students enjoy and also watch it, like some part of cartoon, for example, and make some tasks based on the cartoon or based on some series. But always remember that there is some age frame that it's convenient for your students, that it's not like 16 plus or 14 plus and so on. Next one, Miro board and Google Jamboard. These ones are amazing tools for online classes. Let's see. Talking about Miro board, this board, it's created for online classes where you can just visualize everything that you would do in offline lesson. What I mean by that is that even if you have PDF version of the book, you can split it. Again, there are lots of resources, online resources that will help you to do that, like split PDF, and add here some pages and work on them right here on the whiteboard. You can mark something, you can add some comments here, you can put ticks, crosses, you can underline something, you can use color coding, you can use sticky notes and everything. Let me show you how else you can use it, like mind maps, for example, like this. You can create charts like this, and so on, sticky notes, and so on. Like, it's very flexible. You can organize the way you want, and you can just put every piece of information you put in the lesson on this board because it will be created. Also, you don't need to buy the membership, but it's quite limited, like 3 or 4 boards for using. Then you will need to pay, unfortunately. The next one is Google Jamboard. This board is also an amazing tool for online lesson because you can use it not only for drawing, not only for writing, typing, whatever. You can also create the games. This game was created by me. It's about irregular verbs. That means that students just need to roll the dice online and land on the appropriate square and say 3 forms of irregular verbs, or for example, make a sentence with this regular verb in past simple or using past participle form. So it's also quite good for online lessons and even offline ones if you want to just give some more variety to your classes. And the last one that I want to show you, it's the Mentimeter, the one that can be used for very beautiful, very interactive presentations. Just let me show you. So you can even try joining this presentation. Everything that you need to do is to go here, menti.com. I can copy link and share it in the chat, I think. You can join this link. And then as a student, you can join, put the code 19066482. And this way, your students will have everything on the screen demonstrated by the teacher, and they will have it on their smartphone as well. So they will be able to answer the questions, complete the gaps, and so on. So you can try it out as well. I can see, just a moment. Yeah, I can see even some hearts here already. Okay, good. So as you can see, all the information is like doubled. So you have it in your smartphone and you have it on my screen. So you can use it in offline lesson and in online lesson to demonstrate some, for example, grammar topics or vocabulary topics or something like that. So it can be used for quizzes as well, because there is a feature that your students will have the sentence where they will need to complete the correct word, or they need to tick a correct box, like something like that as well. Just it depends on the type of the presentation. All right, great. So actually, we finished with our topics, but before we finish, I would like you to think and brainstorm on what kind of questions you might have regarding blended learning, flipped classroom, maybe resources or advantages, disadvantages, and so on. While you're thinking, I would like to say something about the blended learning and flipped classroom in Green Country. Actually, Green Country created the first book that starts to be demonstrated and starts to be practiced in real schools. Its name is Stories. It's made by Green Country, by Green Country Books. Green Country Books, it's the department in Green Country, a South Good network that creates different types of the books, like 24 Easy Steps, Step from 1 to 24, Notes by Green Country for high school, and Stories for the schools of Ukraine, actually. So all the book is divided in different units. So we have welcome unit, we have unit number 1, number 2, number 3, and so on. This book is not just the course book. It's not just the workbook. The book is designed and created by Ukrainian designers and Ukrainian authors who know what is interesting for Ukrainian students, because a lot of British course books, they have interesting topics, but they are not related to the reality of Ukraine, for example. In this book, we combined everything that can be interesting for Ukrainian students. So what is the unique about this book? This is all about flipped classroom, because we have also some tasks and self-studies on the platform Booyah. Let me show you, it's right here. So this is self-study of unit number 1, as you can see. We have the list of vocabulary, we have audio that the student can listen to. We have task number 1 that let us practice the words from the vocabulary here. Task number 2, matching word with the definition. Grammar chart, where we can study grammar, targeted grammar of the lesson. Task number 3, we need to choose the correct option about the grammar, and so on. Task number 4, unscramble the sentences, also about the grammar. Task number 5, where we can type the answer and check ourselves, actually. So let's try it out. So we have some matching tasks. We can just take some random, give some random answers. Like that, like that, and check ourselves. So you can see that only 2 of them were correct. I was quite lucky today. And others are not correct. So as a student, I can see what was wrong and what was right. But if I'm not sure, for example, why driver and F is not correct, I can press show answers and I can see all the correct answers. It's a very good feature for those who do their homework by themselves without the help of the teacher, of the tutor, of the parents, because there is a situation that some of the parents, they don't know English. They cannot help their children with homework, like with math or biology or science or everything. They don't know English, so they cannot help them anyway. So in this case, we just created this button, show answers, that gives an opportunity for the student not to be sad about not the correct answers and without the understanding like why it's not correct. We can just show the answers and provide them with the right information. About the grammar charts, you can see that we have all the grammar chart here in one self-study. Then we have tasks that practice this grammar exactly. We're not given anything extra, and we are not given anything that is less than the grammar chart. Like everything is about the information from the presentation stage. So as I said before, when I was talking about presentation online, talking about vocabulary, this is exactly the presentation stage. We have the word, we have the meaning, we have the audio. So we cover meaning of the word, what it means, like translation, form of the verb itself, how to write it, how to see that, like how to recognize, and pronunciation stage. So this is the MFP that is covered completely: meaning, form, and pronunciation. Next, if we talk about grammar, we have the grammar chart. Usually we also might have a grammar video if we talk about 24 Easy Steps platform. And after the grammar video, we'll always have some grammar chart like this, for example, with some explanation when we use can, in what situations, what meaning it has, how to write it, how to make a negative form, how to make a positive form, how to make question, general question, special question, and so on. So everything will be provided in self-study. So now imagine if your students do this self-study at home, that they will come to your lesson fully prepared. Like they will not have any issue with can, cannot, with question forms. They will know in how to use it, in what situations to use it, because we have an explanation here actually, and they already did some tasks. So you can already practice speaking with your students in the lesson without spending and wasting any time on presentation that can be done actually at home without you, without your support as a teacher. So this is a very useful component, like the part of learning, because the students will enjoy doing their homework. They will not just spend 1 hour writing the boring sentences, texts, and tasks from the course book or workbook. They will enjoy doing that, their homework, in on the laptop, in their smartphone, on the tablet, that will be very nice for them, and their motivation, as I said before, will increase much more. Next, the book is actually practiced and used in Green Country ESL School Network. So all the books that we create, we use with our own students. We provide them with extra materials, and we mix self-study online platform that is created by us with offline component. It's a book, like printed version of the book itself. Also for some books, we provide board games, flashcards, different extra games like bingo games, and so on. So as we work with a lot of partners all around the whole Ukraine, we have different schools that buy our books, buy our materials, the access to the platform, and they use and they base their lessons on our course books. So usually when we provide our course books to them, to some school who is our partner, we provide them with some extra materials as well, lesson plans that are very detailed, like each task, each activity is for some specific time frame. So it will be for 80 minutes that the lesson will last. So if you have 45 minutes of your lesson, you can divide it into 2 lesson plans. And of course, the most important, it's like specific thing about this book is that we want our students, we want all children of Ukraine to be motivated, to be inspired by someone who is very famous. That is why before every lesson, they will have some QR code with the video of some famous person in Ukraine who will just encourage, who will give some inspiration to the student to learn, to be challenged, to do something extra, and to study, of course. So this is something specific that I would like to mention about the book. And we just want every student to feel comfortable, not to feel bad about making mistakes, because only through making mistakes, we can achieve the success, and in learning as well. After our meeting, you will get all the information from the webinar, from this online training session, our meeting. And also you will get the registration form for the presentation of the book stories that I have provided some information about. And the authors of the course book, that I am one of the authors of this course book. We will just tell you more about the structure, on how to work with the book, what is specific about the book, what you can achieve using this book, and so on. So the presentation will take place on 19th of November at 5 p.m. So feel free to join, to log in there, and I will be happy to see you there in the presentation. So now I'm waiting for your questions in the chat. Do you be so kind to give resources for blended and flipped learning? I have provided you with some of them, and in the letter, in email after our meeting, you will get some more links for online resources. How can I get this book? The manager will help you with that. She can answer your question. Just please hold on for a couple of minutes. What about the word wall, I think, right? Yeah, word wall is also a great resource. Just the problem is that it's limited. Like you can create up to 5 activities, if I'm not mistaken, and then you will need to pay for the membership. But if you pay for the membership, it will be amazing. Like you will be able to create so many great tasks. I will just message the name of word wall, this resource, and I will include it into the email. This is a great one, just it's limited. This is only one thing about that. Okay, don't see the questions yet. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you so much for your participation, for your time. It was very nice to see all of you here who want to get some professional development. That's great to see that. And I hope I inspired you to try something else with your lessons and to maybe implement a bit of blended learning and flipped classroom in your lessons. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. For what kind of pupils is this book? This is actually for the 5th grade. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for your time today. And I will mention one more time that you will get all the information in Gmail. Is it possible to use flipped lessons for the 2nd and 3rd forms? Yeah, because we use flipped classroom for the 1st grade as well. Like it's possible, just you need to have a very structured plan of what you're gonna do. For example, in Green Country, in 24 easy steps, we have step 1, 2, 3, 4. It's for grades 1 and 2. And we have online platforms that provides our students with a very strict structure on what they do today, tomorrow, next lesson, and so on. So we have self-studies, we have lessons part. It will be very convenient for these primary school learners to have some strict structure only before you implement that. How many levels does your book have? If you talk about the books of Green Country books, then it's steps from 1 to 24. It's from beginner to pre-intermediate. And then we have also notes by Green Country for high school. It will be from beginner to upper intermediate and basically for all the levels, just it depends on the age. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, I think we can finish for now as I don't see any questions anymore. Just a moment. Thank you so much. All the questions regarding certificates, you can ask in the Gmail reply, but anyway, we will provide the information about certificates as well in letters that will be sent to you after this webinar with all the materials, all the links and resources. Okay. Thank you. I really appreciate your time and your interest. I hope to see you again next time and have a good evening today. And I wish you to add something extra and interesting into your classes, into your lessons. Thank you so much. See you and goodbye. Bye-bye.